So, Robin, you said you like adventure. Is that what got you to be a pilot? Was the adventure of flying, the adventure of beating that fear? Because I was afraid of flying for the longest time, and I finally flew. I think I took my first flight in 2019, I believe, and I was scared. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a ride." So, what got you into being a pilot?
I've often asked myself that. It's almost more of, Liz, it would have been a bigger decision not to be a pilot, because I can't really say I would have imagined anything else I could have done with my life. But it wasn't to come easily. I had red green color blindness when I was young. I still do. I am red green
Ooh.
colorblind. And when I was younger, that kept me out of flying. And of course, you could imagine that when I was a young boy, that was going to be my salvation. Having been bullied, that was going to get me out of all of this. And then I was told I couldn't, and I thought, oh God, well, my life's come to an end. That's my whole raison d'être has just collapsed. And so I decided to work in aviation as a businessman, and that kept me close to airplanes, but that wasn't quite enough. Until one day I decided to go on holiday, which involved flying, and I had to go and get a medical. And somebody said to me at the time, "Do you know the laws changed? That you can still be red green colorblind, but be a pilot at the same time." Oh,
Oh,
really? And I thought, oh my God, right. So I ended up getting on a plane from Middle East to Gatwick in London, and had the full test done. And I passed the colorblindness test. And it was ironic because the guy there had been working as a medical man in the Saudi army, and he'd just come back, and he sort of took me under his wing because I'd be working out in the Middle East as well. And he said, "Well, look, do you want to do the rest of your test? Because it's pretty involved." And I said, "Well, I hadn't really bargained on doing that, so I haven't made the booking." And fate, how things happen serendipitously, kismet, call it what you like. He said, two guys from Iceland have just cancelled. They're stuck on the motorway. They can't make it in time. So if you want it, there's your slot, there's your chance. You've passed your colorblindness test. Are you prepared to go the next step? Hell yes. And that's how it started. So life changed beyond all measure. I was a businessman out in Oman, living a very comfortable life, tax-free salary, and then I went to becoming a pilot student earning nothing. And it was
oh.
brilliant. I can't tell you. It was fantastic. Challenging, scary, but brilliant.
Well, and you have a program called Fly. I believe it's called Flying. Where is it? Fear of Flying. So I find that it aligns with all of you what you've done in your lifetime, right? Is you became a pilot, the flying, the fear, everything just aligns together with your story and who you are as an individual, Robin. So where did you get the fear of flying or beating the fear of flying?
Fear for me has been an intrinsic part of my life, as you can understand, from a very young age, because I became super hyper vigilant. I became terrified of my own shadow. When I was younger, I used to rush my words out because I was so utterly stressed about everything, and I didn't want to be seen or heard. So I would just stumble words out. People would go, "What? What did you say?" And then that would be enough to completely freak me. And I see other kids now who are super stressed doing the same thing, and I think, "Ah, you poor kid, I know how you feel." And so, as I say to you, growth and happiness is always on the far side of fear. You gotta push through it. There's no alternative. And so what I did was I recognized this quite early on by reading the book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And cut a long story short, that saved me from a lot more stress and anxiety than probably I would have endured had I just tried to struggle on my own. And I owe that little book a lot. So as a result, I became a trainer for that organization, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And now I provide people with an insight into the role of fear in our everyday lives and how to surpass it, how to get past it. Because everything we do, I think, has a large part of fear in it. And I think a lot of people misunderstand what I mean by that, because they think it's all to do with sort of Halloween and people getting frights and shock. It's not so much that. It's about the concept of not wanting to do something because there is a consequence. And there are all manner of fears that people have, and they don't necessarily know that they've got them, because a lot of them are held in our subconscious. And of course, that's where the hypnotherapy comes in, because the subconscious is the part of our psyche which basically drives pretty much everything we do. But we don't know that it's doing it because it is subconscious. We don't know what's happening. We can't see it, we can't feel it, but we know something's going on because we react, we respond, we behave in a certain way.
So, what is it about our subconscious that puts us in that fear state?
The subconscious itself is not necessarily predisposed to being in a fear state, although we have a natural system which we call the amygdala, and it's there from prehistoric times to essentially keep us away from things that will kill us or poison us or generally make our day seem less than optimal. It's to create an awareness of what's going on around us and to evaluate risk. And it's on 24 hours a day, operated through our subconscious system. And it's kept us alive up until now. But the problem is, it is 24 hours a day. It doesn't switch off. And when we were cavemen and we were hunting, we would be aware of what was happening in trees and bushes beside us. We would maybe hear rustling and we would go, aha, saber-toothed tiger, better go and watch this. And so it would create three options for us. It would create a fight or a flight or a freeze option. And the fight, you will understand, was just literally saving your life by strangling the saber-toothed tiger or sticking a knife into it. The flight was to run away and hide in a cave. But the other one, the freeze option, was one that people haven't really talked about quite so much, and it leads to all sorts of interesting consequences in our daily life, not least of which is procrastination. So freeze was the reaction we would have to that saber-toothed tiger, which said, oh, I'm dead. Don't kill me now because I'm dead already and I'm probably decaying, so you don't want to eat me. So that was the idea. And you would find also that it was there to stop you making noises. You know, maybe the saber-toothed tiger would just walk past you, not see that you were there. But now, because we are basically cavemen, you know, walking around in jeans and t-shirts and suits, we haven't quite developed emotionally as much as our culture has.
Oh.
And that's what seems to be causing so much of our stress and anxiety just at this time, because we still have this amygdala doing its thing, saving us from saber-toothed tigers. But now, instead of a rustling bush with a tiger behind it, we see threat in virtually everything. So that isn't too surprising, therefore, that we should feel anxious, that we should feel afraid, but not necessarily with any real conscious concept of what it is we're afraid of. We just know that we're constantly stressed, we're under tension, we feel nervous, anxious, or there are certain things which of themselves are not particularly frightening. But if you combine them with a series of other events, circumstances, they become a monster because of our amygdala. And that's a lot of what I do with talking about fear. It's that whole, is it real? Let's look at this. Let's make a real balanced decision about what it is that we're confronting. Is what we are afraid of real? And you'd be surprised how many of these things that we're afraid of, they're I'm not saying that they're all in our mind, because that unfortunately leads on to a whole set of other confusions.
Yeah.
They are real to the person feeling them, but the reality of the situation often is that the feeling they have regarding their situation bears no comparison to the reality of the situation, because they've misconstrued, misperceived, and allowed their amygdala to overcompensate for a situation which really doesn't justify the feelings that they're feeling. Does that make them feel better? Not a whole lot, but it just is the knowledge and part of the healing process that allows them to move forward, because knowledge is power. And with that power, you realize to some extent that you've created the situation into which you've fallen. It's not like, ha ha, there you are, get out of that. No, it's to do with the idea that, well, don't worry about this. This is something that we can understand now, given that we understand psychology and neuroscience so much better than we did even 10 years ago. So here's how we're going to deal with it. And then we then go through a healing process.